I came away from this episode legitimately confused as to what the takeaway was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know who learned the lesson, what the lesson was, who was right in the situation, if you were supposed to figure out who was right. None of this happens if they just keep their damn helmets on. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know why they keep taking their helmets
Really,
off.
the minute they learn there's breathable air, they're just like, they just let everything in.
Right,
It's really shocking.
How come Prometheus got shit for doing that, but nobody gave this show shit 20 years ago for
Should
doing
be the first
thing.
First thing brought up in any Trek BB bulletin board or whatever is how can they take their helmets off?
From now on, anytime someone brings that up, I'm pulling this out of the bin and I'm putting it on trial.
This is a pointless Enterprise episode.
Yeah, you know, the thing that was confusing me was that for the first like half of it, I felt like what they were doing had some merit because I was like, oh, okay, the idea here is that Archer is trying to legitimately save these, save this collateral damage. They don't need to kill all these unborn children. They don't need to be the monsters that the Xindi think they are. I actually thought that the spray in the face was actually a misdirect. I thought eventually it was going to be like, no, that didn't do anything. He just didn't want to kill those kids.
Right.
But as it got further and further on, obviously he's going crazy, and then he puts the Makos in charge, which is kind of crazy, and then there's a mutiny, and by the end of it, I'm like, so is the message here that empathy in time of war is an insane prospect? I couldn't parse out what the hell the point of this was supposed to be.
Well, I think that the core fundamental problem with this episode is that it's an Enterprise episode, and because it's an Enterprise episode, they're not actually going to get into what the interesting idea from this story kernel could be, right? Like, they're going to the only way that this episode is intriguing or insightful is if Archer legitimately, of his own mind, wants to save the Xindi eggs, right?
Right,
so
exactly, yeah.
In that case, but Enterprise just isn't capable of the kind of nuance in its writing that this episode kind of demands happen. So you have to have, and what's funny is I also see how this episode could work in a better version of how the Xindi season story has gone, where Archer's development is not inconsistent in the way that the crew thinks he's remarkably consistent, but we as an audience are like, what the hell is wrong with Archer every single episode? Like, why is he going back and forth? If Archer was much more of a confused person throughout this, his decision here and the crew sort of going along with it, acting as though he's not completely sweaty all the time, going nuts and like digging around in this alien ship. If they saw his decision as another in the string of Archer seems to be losing the point of this mission and we need to replace him, I think that this episode would really serve well as like the pinnacle moment where Archer convinces the rest of the crew about something or like, brings everyone to his side of what the Xindi story is going to be. But regardless, this is all completely undone by Archer is infected and starts acting crazy. And the way he's acting is completely off the charts. Like, there's no legitimate way that anyone on the crew should not be like, we need to get this guy the hell out of here. So clear. You see him when he got sprayed by that stuff? Maybe we should see if that stuff did something to him because this is insane. He's not. Enterprise isn't even a good enough show to.
Let's be honest. How many times have one of us gotten sprayed by something on an alien planet and it's worked out fine?
It's not the usual
Very
way
few.
This narrative works. Even if the show is better and it's stuck with what this plot was, Archer needs to be less insane from the get-go to make this be like, oh, like the egg preservation goo should make him have actually a legitimate reason to not do this instead of this completely arbitrary cockamamie idea as to what he's going to do. They try to do it, but he's he's clearly nuts. So you know the entire time that, well, as soon as they knock him out, everything's going to happen. And then it goes into an Enterprise action sequence and everything is saved at the end of the day. And that's about it. That's the big letdown for this one.